Mathot, Mark Andrews. Appreciate you guys coming in to do just like a little question and answer, about story.
No worries, Gordon.
So, I don't know if you just want to do like a quick, introduction, like, where you got started, and did you guys both go to Cal Arts?
No.
I went to RISD.
That's Ted Mathot.
Okay. Really?
Yeah.
And so, did they have a story program there?
No, they
or
didn't.
Animation?
No. No, it's, we just kind of, everyone has their own approach, and you do,
Sanjima.
we didn't really have character animation or story or anything like that, but we had, the guidance from the instructors on our projects, and everyone, basically just followed their own path,
Mm-hmm.
And, I chose to do mind and cell animation, because that's what I was familiar with, and, was my favorite stuff.
Was this your first job here, coming here, or did you?
No, I went into TV. I was at the Ren and Stimpy show. It was my first gig.
How about you, Mark?
I went to Cal Arts,
Okay.
89 through 92, 93, whatever it was, 4 years. BFA, that's the, school Disney started. It was a cool environment because it just wasn't animation. There was a film school, there was the theater school, there was the music school, there was the dance school, the art school. So you're surrounded by all these artists in art, and which was really cool. And I think I was like one of the only animators who was in a production at Cal Arts Theater. I was in a play every year. I was like the spear carrier or somebody in the background, But just to get that going, because I was interested in all of it, music history, dance history,
So you had multiple majors.
So I didn't. I just had the one major. But what they encourage at Cal Arts when I was there, it's kind of not written in any pamphlet you're going to read, is you can take a class from any discipline, right? So I did, which was really
And that,
fun
do you
to
think
do.
that it really informed your sensibilities as far as like acting and staging and stuff?
No, I don't think it did that. I think what it did was it just opened my mind to all the other art forms that there are, because the thinking is very similar across all the disciplines, that you want to tell something, you want to give something to the audience, you want them to have an experience, you want them to feel a certain way or see the skill in a certain, thing that you're doing, that all these things have meaning, that there's thought behind the choices that everybody makes, whether it's the musician or the photographer or the artist, we'd have in Cal Arts, it was just a wild environment, because you come out of the Cal Arts character animation department, which was his own little cloistered little place inside the building. You come out and there'd be 2 tons of trash sitting out in the main gallery with somebody underneath it, because that's performance art, or you come out another day and there's this big vagina sitting out in the main gallery, because that's performance art. You come out and there's a swing that is chained, that you could put 30 people on and swing in the main gallery. It opens your mind. And I think that's the thing that you need. If I got anything out of Cal Arts was that you don't edit anything's a possibility.
Mm-hmm. Any specific teachers that you can remember that really influenced you?
Dan Hansen was fabulous. He was teaching layout at the time, and he never taught us how to draw layouts like buildings or perspective or anything. He would just come in and show us movies, and he'd talk about the film language, which was like a secret idea. People would say, oh, the film language, or the language of film, blah, 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 but nobody ever say what exactly that is. What are the mechanics behind that, or what are you looking for in that, And Dan Hansen was the first person to break it down for everybody.
Now, Ted, you came from RISD, so that's not really the CalArts way. So how did you learn to design characters? Were there character designers there?
Right. I was an illustration major, and the cool thing about that was you could cross over into film video animation. So I had, all the painting and all the drawing that the illustrators had, plus I had the film video, all the technical stuff, so it was a really great blend, of the two things. And after I got out of RISD, a lot of what I learned was, on the job. I bounced around TV for a while at a bunch of studios, and every studio I went to, I picked up stuff, and I learned a lot that way, but I had that, that solid art school foundation from RISD, and I just built on it, at each of my jobs.
Did you guys both always want to do story? Did you know that you were going to get into it?
No, not me. I went to, I didn't know I was even, wanted to be an artist or anything like that, though I drew since I was 3, I would sit in the back of class and draw instead of doing my homework and stuff like that. It wasn't until I got out of high school and I was going to go into the military that my friend said, don't you dare go in the military, you can draw, you should be able to do something with that. And I said, I don't know. So I went to city colleges and just took life drawing and perspective drawing and basically just foundation classes until I found this one instructor who was teaching an animation class in Santa Maria, California. And he hooked me up to CalArts. And I said, there's a school that teaches you to do animation. I was into, screw the Disney shit. I respect Milt Kahl and all those guys. But I'm a product of Japanese animation world. Kimba, Speed Racer, G-Force, Robotech. Those are my animation gods,
Mm-hmm.
None of these 9-0 men stuff, so I'm all, there's a school that you can learn how to do this. I can draw. You mean I can have a career just drawing for the rest of my life? I'm in. And I went that way, but I went there to be an animator, to animate. And it wasn't until I got out of my 4th year that I was in the Disney internship in Glendale that I realized that the most fun or the most challenging stuff that I liked doing was story, because it touched everything. It touched animation or acting, right? Because you have to express the pose or the emotion, of the character. Staging and layout, editing, and you got to handle a chunk of the movie, not a very specific part. It was a huge chunk, so you get to kind of have a say or get to help build this huge structure. It was like being an architect versus the construction guys going in there and actually hammering, or the carpenter that's actually making the, braces and things to build the building, You help designing it and making it.
In terms of design, that kind of leads me to get into the more technical aspect of it. How do you guys come up with, or how do you keep from doing the same things compositionally and, just editing wise, cutting everything? How do you keep it fresh, when you're going into a sequence?
I think it's the first thing you do is you do the same thing that you always do, and then you look at it, and now you can put on that other hat of the observer and go, that sucks, and then start thinking about it. It's like we all go see movies, and when we go see movies, I use this analogy all the time. But we go see movies, and we get out of the movie, we go, Transformers, it was okay, but it could have been so much better because blah, 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 right? We only can say that because we've seen it. So storyboarding is the same thing. Me and Ted will sit there, right, and we'll do the same old shit we usually do, and then look at the sequence and go, this is, what it should be. It should be blah because... here's here, and then we really start getting into it and doing shit.
So you gotta get it up before you tear it down.
And that's just, I basically say that's basically a process. We've been doing it long enough that happens faster and more instantaneous, that we don't have to take that step initially. We don't board out the whole thing like crap first. I mean, we're thinking as we're going, but the first thing that hops into your mind is something that you've already done. Oh, this is an over-shoulder, blah, 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 blah. And then you think about it a little bit more because you already see it in your head or it's on paper. You go, you know what? It shouldn't be this. It should be, I should be over the top, higher, or come in, or whatever, you know?
Do you do that, like, when you're working, or does it take you a review to get to that point, or do you just instinctively do it while you're working?
I think everybody does, but I have a library of shots in my head, and I tend to go to that, you know, and I pull from those shots because it's the style of boarding that I do, you know, and when I feel like I'm getting in a rut, I just go and I explore. I start looking at films, you know, and I start drawing the shots, you know, things that wouldn't occur to me, you know, or I go to, like, my fellow story artists, my peers and stuff, and I look at how they board, and I look at their shots, you know, and constantly adding to the library, you know, adding those shots so you have a bigger repertoire to pull from.
You know, how much creative liberties does the board artist have in terms of visualizing the script pages?
Well, I think that's a trick question because you have a lot of liberties. You can do whatever you want. But what we're really trying to do is we're really trying to get inside the director's head and see what he sees, or how does he see the sequence, or how does he feel about particular visuals. You know, working with Brad Bird, Brad has his Brad Bird style of filmmaking, which is different than an Andrew Stanton style of filmmaking, different than a John Lasseter style of filmmaking, different than a Jan Pinkova style of filmmaking, different than, you know, any of the directors we have here at Pixar. So it's really this trying to mind read them, you know, and that's why Brad hires me, or hires Ted, because our line of thinking already is very close to Brad. So we're going to be able to get a story team into the ballpark faster, you know, because our thinking is basically the same. So we'll do it, we'll look at it, do notes on it, show it to Brad, and then that's where the fine-tuning starts to come in. So there's some leeway. I mean, there's some stuff that Kevin O'Brien has done, or even Ted has done, or Pete Sohn has done, that is kind of new and different, and seen it in a different way that maybe Brad hadn't thought of, because Brad doesn't see everything, you know, but he does the same exact thing that I was talking about before. He can't tell you until he sees it, and then he can make a final decision about it, or he can make a call about it. He goes, fuck, that works, and it'll just go. Or he says, it's not playing yet. And then we got to figure out, what is it in the filmmaking, or what is it in the scene that's holding us up? Because there's a billion different ways to see somebody walking through a door.
Right.
But what's the best way for this particular scene, or this particular shot, or this particular character, you know, to walk in, open a door and come walking in?
Well, I mean, when you have, like, story problems, I mean, you know, how are you guys working it out? Like, you know, when you're in there talking about what doesn't work.
That's all structure mostly.
It's structure.
It's structure. It's stuff that you can talk about. I mean, you get a bunch of guys in a room, and you talk about it, and you talk about it, and you throw out ideas, because that's faster than drawing. Now, once you get the beats right, so it feels like the structure is working, or everybody's nodding their head, going, yeah. Everybody can automatically see the scene, or see the sequence. Then you say, go. Because we can't draw it unless we know what the sequence is. Because that is giving us our template to pick shots and to visualize it in a specific way.
Can you talk a little bit about, like, the difference between working on Incredibles as opposed to coming on to this movie?
Actually, Ratatouille was really interesting for me because I worked under Jan and Brad, and you know, for a while in there, Bob Peterson too, and you know, it's a really tricky part of our job being a story artist is switching gears to work with the different directors, you know, because all three of them throughout, you know, the life of the picture and story had different sensibilities, you know, and adapting to that was difficult, you know, but it's part of the job, you know, being a story artist to be able to do that and to kind of lock in, like Mark was saying, and kind of get after what the directors are, what they have in their head, you know, trying to unlock that safe, you know.
Yeah, because you might not always agree with it, you know.
Right.
It just comes with the territory. I think Boarding wise, on Incredibles was much easier to board than Ratatouille was. Even though Ratatouille is a smaller film, it was the fact that it was a smaller, more contained, character-eccentric film than Incredibles was, made it so much more difficult to do. I mean, Incredibles is big, action, high stakes, drama, intense. I could get into visuals very, very easily with that. This is more of your Woody Allen talk it up a lot comedy, you know? Nah, I can't really get into that. I don't know what to do visually with that. So that was kind of a dam for me, you know, to board, you know? How do I know this is playing? How intense does this need to be? What is the image? What is the storytelling shot of this? So there's a lot more. It just didn't come off as not that Incredibles was easy to do, but it was easier to think about because I'm already flying in that mode. You know, I have to change gears, and just that transition of changing gears made it, you know, so much harder to board. But all the same stuff that we put in the Incredibles and the same mechanics we make to make the visual decision making storytelling is the same thing that happens in Ratatouille. It's the same. It's exactly, the process is exactly the same.
Right.
You know.
So there's the action guys. There's the heartfelt moments.
Yeah.
Guys.
There's the facial expression guys that can handle a really good scene. That's all about, you know, facial expression and acting. There's the subtlety guys. There's the you know, the sad, tender, you know, scene guys, you know, the guys who really get into the emotion, you know, the mood guys, you know.
How much do you guys get into, you know, like as an animator, I always look at the boards before I start a shot, and a lot of the times I'm informed by the pose and the acting. Mm-hmm. How much do you really spend on coming up with an original pose for a piece of acting? Or do you just be like, those guys will figure it out, you know, I want to get something in here, but do you really think about the gesture and exactly what, you know, like how original something might be?
A little bit, but because we have to move so fast, we can't take that kind of specific time to go, now when this guy lifts a cigarette, you know, or the cigar up to his mouth, you know, confidently, how's that going to look? I'm just going to draw a guy with the cigarette coming up towards his mouth with maybe an expression in his eye or something like that. That's all. That's about as much time I have to really think about it.
How many boards a day are you doing?
How many boards a day are we doing?
Yeah.
At my max, how many panels?
Yeah.
100.
That acting stuff it's almost like the icing.
Right.
You know, when you're doing boards, because for me, when I start in on it, I look at the script and I'm like, okay, where is this taking place? What is, you know, and then I start to feel out the environment, and I start to place the camera, where my character's going to be, you know, and I look at the blocking, you know, so I do all that, and then I draw one panel for each shot, and I break it down that way, and then as I go, if I have time at the end, I'll go in and I'll start, you know, hitting the acting, like, specifically, you know, I try the best that I can to get it in on that first pass.
Right.
But a lot of times it'll come a little bit later, if there's time, you know, depending on how fast we're going.
Right.
That kind of leads me a little bit to ask you the difference between working the old way where you're pitching on boards and this new way where everything is done on a Cintiq, you're pitching in Pitch Doctor. What do you miss about the old way? What's great about the new way?
I don't miss nothing.
Really?
I don't miss nothing.
I love the new way.
Yeah.
A lot of people miss
Love it.
pitching, though. I talk to people and they say they miss the
But
pitch.
we're still pitching. We're still pitching, and you're pitching in real time, and nobody could read ahead on the boards, and it's bigger than life because we put it on these big HD freaking, you know, 40-inch, 50-inch screens. You can't miss anything. So it's you're seeing it in context. There's more of a context now than there ever has been in history. in the boarding process. The whole pitch thing was a necessity because you have to pitch it, so you have to pin all these boards up on the thing. You have to draw them big. You have to draw them with China marker so that you could read them across the room because you're going to be 3 or 4 rows deep, in that heyday. That all these things that you had to learn was from a bygone era that has absolutely no hold on today's thing. The lessons that you learn from this, and I'll get blasted back for this, but the lessons that you learn from that do not apply to actual filmmaking. They apply just for the pitch. The pitch is not what you see in the film. It's just conveying the information to the filmmakers or whoever's in the room that this is playing, and I think this is playing. But is it really? That it's all proscenium shot, no staging, business only, no lighting, no nothing. It's just, okay, I see them in a 2-shot, and here's an over shoulder, and we got single, and da-da-da-da-da. Yeah, I guess the jokes are working. Let's move.
You're putting in tonal values.
We're putting in. It comes from basically and not that Brad's the only one who does this, but everybody talks about the Brad Bird School of filmmaking because people have to put stuff in a box. But what's happening in the shot? Every element that's in the shot is important because it's telling a story. Whether the camera's out of focus or in focus. What we see in the background. Do we see the fire escape? How much of the fire escape? Is it at an angle? Is it a horizontal? Is it a diagonal? Is it red back there? Is it green? Do you see the bricks clearly? Da-da-da. All that stuff has to do with help telling the story. Where the character is in the frame. How big he is. How close he is to the camera. How far away he is. All that stuff has to do with helping tell a story. If it didn't, every movie would be characters walking on a white frame or a black frame, and we don't give a poop. But it helps tell the story. It gives us information that our eyes, since we're visual creatures, we pick up instantaneously. We get that information so fast. So it has to be there because that's how we help tell a story when we manipulate the audience to feel certain things. So
everybody's working this way now?
Pretty much.
Yeah,
pretty much.
Okay.
But
when we board this new way, it allows us to use all the tools available to us as board artists. And when we're stepping through it in Pitch Doctor, you can see the cutting,
right.
Which is great. I think it's helped me a lot, and I know it's helped a lot of the other board artists look at their cutting and how their shots work.
You feel the continuity because it's bigger. Board artists usually draw claustrophobically. They draw so big that you don't really have long shots or anything like this. But now that it's projected up onto your big 50-inch, HD TV screen, right? You can pull the camera back. Since you're working on a computer, you can go bloop 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 and zoom into it to do your drawing, and then go bloop bloop bloop.
Do you guys want even more? Like, do you want
there's
3D?
No,
2.5D.
There's a balance, and it all has to do with speed. Right? As soon as you start sacrificing speed for detail, you're doing yourself a disservice. Because there's other departments that are going to do the detail. Animation is going to do the detail. Layout is really going to finesse that slow truck in with a slight turn on it. They're going to be doing those kinds of... Lighting is going to be adding a lot more, depth of field and lighting effects and mood and environment. So all you have to do is give an idea of it.
Okay.
So that it inspires the animator when you look at the boards. It inspires the lighting. I would get feedback from animation, layout, and lighting all the time on Incredibles and on Ratatouille saying, man, that scenes came in, man, I got it. So I could feel that move, so I wanted to move the camera around. Or that lighting was already there in the scene. You put it in there, and if you look at Sharon's lighting on the scene and what I did with 3 tones on the scene, you go, no. She took it to another level, but it was there enough that she got it, and she was just lit up by it and inspired and just put so much more in, than we could ever do in the boards. It's just an idea. It's the blueprint.
Now, in terms of idea, that kind of leads me to gag sessions. Just coming up with ideas. Do you ever run out? I mean, honestly, like when I was sitting in on a couple of these, some guys just got it. like
Mhm,
1, 2,
mhm,
3, and
mhm.
then how do these guys come up with so many ideas?
Yeah, we have some really, really good gag people here. You know, I'll admit that I'm not the strongest gag person. You know, I feel like my strengths are in other areas. You know, but man, some of these folks are just like firecrackers going off. You know.
Yeah.
A
You
gag
can't-
session
you
is
can't stop
obviously different from just an idea session.
Well, I think gag is kind of the universal term for a brainstorming session. Gags, it could be for jokes only. Gags could be for you're just talking about the scene and how it could be better or what different directions you could go in the scene. Gag session could be just talking. Me and Brad would have gag sessions where we sit there, just me and him looking at the boards and going over it staging wise. Let's combine this. Do we need this? Da 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 da. That technically a gag session too.
Okay.
I think it's just a general phrase for anybody in the room, more than one person. Beating out the scene or talking about the scene or talking about specific gags in the scene or what could we do here or even before you have the scene. We need this clown to come into the room and then what does he do? But he's got to get caught with his pants down. So you have the beginning and the end and how do you build up to that in the middle and then people just start throwing it on the table,
Okay.
But there's all types of people. There'll be the guys who are the machine gun mouths who just go blah 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 and just shoot it out. And it's great. The more ideas, the better, because once you hit the right idea, it doesn't matter who came up with it, and it's the rule is the best idea wins, And when everybody's shaking their heads around the room, you've got it.
Or laugh.
There's
or
a
whatever.
consensus, or a big laugh, and you've got it. Some laughs are. You have to watch it because some laughs, everybody could be laughing and it's just not appropriate. It's just because it's insane or crazy or something like that. You're just going, that's impossible. It's freaking funny, So
That happens a lot.
But obviously, right,
For
you
those
can't do
crazy
it.
ones,
Yeah,
just to get them out there.
You get Teddy Newton into a room, and he throws up some wicked ass stuff that just doesn't apply, but is the most hilarious things you'll ever hear.
The cool thing about that is it can inspire
Right,
other
something,
stuff that
yeah.
that you can put in there.
Right.
You know what I mean? It takes you down a road that you may not have thought about going down.
Mhm.
Yeah.
In terms of like sequences working or not working, have you guys ever thrown out a sequence and just redone the whole thing
Oh yeah.
from scratch?
Totally.
Oh yeah.
Why?
Because it doesn't work. Because you're banging your head. It should come easy. What I found in my experience is you got it right because it's easy. If it's hard, whatever your choices you're making or whatever you're trying to do, it's not right. And you're forcing it to work. There's on Incredibles, I was working with Brad on the whole. One of my scenes that I was doing was the whole Frozone and Bob out having a chit chat while they're drinking beer. It first started out, they're out in an old demolition yard, basically talking, bullshitting while they're knocking down buildings, right? I did that thing like 7 different times, 3 different ways, with 4 different moods and stuff like that until we just scrapped it. I gave it to Ted. Brad said, catch him, listening to a police radio,
Yeah,
and then there's a fire. Whole new idea.
Whole new idea.
And once we did that, it was done. 1 pass, and it was through. It's easy. So if you're banging your head against something, you need the scene. It's Bob and Frozen talking about stuff, and they got a yip yap, and we need to see them using their superhero powers. Secretly undercover without nobody using it, right? The way we had it with the beer and the chit-chat and stuff, it just wasn't, it was funny, but it just wasn't working. But then we know it's not working, and we've done it 4 times we tried to push this thing through, and every time it just not working. When we finally came out with listen to Police Scanner, they go out every Wednesday night and try and fight crime incognito. And they're sitting in the car just reminiscing. Listen to Skinner. Oh, you want to catch a bird with? No, and they,
So what does
that
the
cartoon-
script say? Like, you get the script pages, or is it just like you guys got to come up with everything?
Well, sometimes it's the script pages, and sometimes we got to come up with everything. Or sometimes Brad goes, the clown walks into the door, and he's got to get caught with his pants down. Go.
Yeah.
You know?
That car scene before the fire was all written out, and it was like one pass.
Right.
You know, done. The fire we did a few times.
Which wasn't written out.
2 or 3 times.
Which was just, yeah.
Yeah, that was a lot looser, so we kind of had to play around with it, you know, and...
before we could zero in on it.
Yeah.
But it's still quicker than all the fucking trees I killed on that one.
Do you look at you know, we look at a lot of reference in animation. What kind of reference are you guys looking at, and how do you use it?
I don't think, and correct me on this, but I don't think we look at
well, not reference. I mean, like, you know, a film.
We just watch films, and we just suck them in through osmosis. You know, we watch bad ones. You know, because you learn more from a bad one than you do a good one. You know, you learn what they did wrong and what they should have done.
Just watching them. You know,
right, and you get swept up. You go, wow, look at that. You know, you see when somebody does something that's just awful on film, you go, oh my God, why did they even put a move in that's so stupid? You know, and you recognize it right there, and then so you have that information. So there's no reference. Like before a sequence, I don't like pull on Seven Samurai and watch it and try and find a sequence that's similar. You know, we don't do that. We just get inspired. We just watch a lot of films.
Well, in terms of film language, what rules can be bent?
Everyone.
Tools, not rules.
Tools, not rules. Basically, the I think the overarching philosophy is establish a pattern and then you can break it. But you break it for a reason. Everything that you do has to be for a reason. As long as it's for a reason, then it's right. If it's not for a reason and willy-nilly just because you can, it's not right. It'll come across as not right.
That sequence in Full Metal Jacket, that's
awesome.
Kevin O'Brien.
Breaking the 180 there.
Yeah.
Michael Mann does it right in the beginning of The Insider. He has that one scene where he's talking to the mullah, you know, or whatnot, you know, the Abdullah, or, you know, the cleric, and he flips the 180, you know, 3 times in a row. He does it later in the film. Kubrick does it, you know, he does it almost every film, you know. Kurosawa does it, you know, Steven Spielberg does it. James Cameron does it, you know, but they're not doing it because they're stuck. They do it because they're trying to make a point. When I was working on Spider-Man with Sam Raimi never broke the 180, ever. It's because the way he filmed, he didn't want to have to move the lights to get the other side of the set or wherever he was filming, because that takes time out. He shoots fast. He shoots very, very, very fast. And he doesn't do a whole lot of takes. And he likes to work it right here. So we have to, all he wants is A, B, and C walls. That's it. A, B, and C walls. In any shot, it's either A, B, B, C, B with A, B, you know, A and C, you know. He just wants to see those walls, and he never breaks a 180. I was breaking the 180 when I was showing him my boards, you know. Because when a goblin hits Spider-Man, he comes out of nowhere. I want to disorient the audience, and I'm having this because it's a foreshadowing something that's just about to happen, you know. And he's, oh, we broke the 180 here. I'm like, yeah, and I explain it to him. He's all, yeah, I don't do that. And that's just his style. And so you whoop, 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 you re-engineer it.
When you guys see student films, what mistakes jump out at you right away?
Staging. Staging's the number one thing.
Pacing?
Cutting.
Yep, all of it. It's just all. There's too much. There's too much cutting.
Too
right?
many shots, yeah.
Too many shots.
Economy.
We're too close most of the time. Yeah. The shots aren't storytelling shots. They're not giving us any more information. It's basically you get the story and you understand it, but it's only on a superficial level. There's nothing deeper in there.
There's a tendency early on to cut to everything.
Right.
You know, whenever there's a new beat, you know, right. Cut. This person's talking, cut. This other, you know, the person across the room's talking, cut to them, cut to them.
There's no emphasis on anything.
Cut. Sure. You know.
Right. There's no emphasis on anything. Well, if you watch movies, you'll see that, hey, this was a 3-shot setup that they just keep going between these 3 shots. And then when somebody walks in the door, that's the new shot. Or you punch in real close when you say, I killed my wife. Well, that's an important piece of information. So that's when you do something different. You know what I mean? That's that establishing a pattern and breaking it, right? Or what I call progression with emphasis, points of emphasis throughout the progression. Scene's got to build. You got to start with the exposition and go up to the climax and then your resolution of your scene every damn time. Students don't do that.
Okay.
Students don't do that. They get carried away with the cool shot or whatever they're telling, and it's fine. That's exactly where they need to be. They're not going to get it because they don't have that type of instruction. You know, they're not trying this stuff.
What is the most important thing to get right though, when they're working like a student's working on a film? The number one thing that they should really be focusing on.
Character. That's it. What do you say, Ted?
I was thinking clarity.
Yeah, that's great
like
too.
Those 2 things.
Yeah, character and clarity.
Yeah.
Character and clarity.
Yeah.
I mean, the number one thing is that whoever's viewing this understands it.
Right.
If they don't understand it, then it's useless.
There's a well, here's an example, right? Doesn't have to be drawn well either. As long as it's character and clarity. We went to a college producer show a couple of years ago, and the J.G. Quintal did this one film called 2 in the AM PM. You could see it on YouTube right now or whatnot, or go to his blog site. But I was out of the seat laughing because it was all about these 2 guys. It was all character, and it was all done very simply. It was a lock-off shots, never over the shoulders, cut to one guy and to the other guy, but it was all about character, and it was all clear what was happening. He didn't get crazy with the staging and stuff like that, though he could have. There was some, and when he did, when there were some parts that called for staging, even though the drawing wasn't, he's not the best draftsman in the world, but it was staged clearly and it had character and you could see this progression and there was the right emphasis and stuff like that. That, I mean, it was all together just a fabulous, fabulous little film.
Huh.
You know?
When it gets difficult is when you start moving the camera around.
Right.
You know, and keeping that clarity is very difficult.
Right,
You know,
right.
it's something that comes with it.
You got to look at. You got to look at. You got to look at. You got to look at Frankenheimer, who was doing it before anybody else. Steven Spielberg, who you could see a lot of Frankenheimer influence in. You know, when those guys move the camera, they are pros. They are totally pros. Cameron, those guys are geniuses. You know, of why the camera moves and where it moves, and keeping all that shot structure and going from one great composition to another composition with the move. It's insane.
When you guys are thinking about moving the camera, are you ever thinking about, you know, this is on a dolly, this is on a track. Are you thinking about the physicality of the camera at all when you're boarding?
Absolutely. I do.
I don't think of it in that way, how exactly this is. I mean, I know the kind of thing I want, whether I want it to boom or to crane, or because there's so many different callings out for what the exact move is. I just feel I need to move this camera closer. How do I do it?
If you only had 5 movies that you could have in your library for, you know, to view over for reference, any idea what they might be?
Well, it would change if you asked me in another 5 hours, you know, or if you asked me yesterday. But 5 off the top of my head right now would be Ron by Kurosawa, Indiana Jones, Raiders of the Lost Ark, Star Wars. What else? That's 3. The Duelists by Ridley Scott, and The Man Who Became by John Huston.
Wow.
Just because I saw that yesterday, and that's a freaking awesome
That's a
movie.
good list. So this is like overall films that like.
Well, you know,
Just
like,
5.
that you want to own. That, you know,
That you would have to have a must in your library.
Right.
Royal Tenenbaums.
No. Although I do like Wes Anderson.
I know you do. I know
Ted,
you do.
are you more of a like an action sequence guy, or are you more about, you know, comedic stuff?
I like
You
all
like
of it.
boredom.
I like all of it. But I would pick Amadeus, The Apartment, Raiders. I love Raising Arizona.
One more.
There's just so many.
But you have to have these 5 in your library. You have to have these 5 in your library.
Yeah. Probably go with A Touch of Evil.
Nice.
What is it that you guys really does it for you when you're watching a film? Obviously,
Right.
Sad story.
Well, I think. I mean, for me, it's I get swept away in the film. I forget that I'm. I don't see the craft. I can analyze that later. I get carried away, and I don't ever tire of seeing Indiana running out of that damn tunnel being chased by the ball. Or go, start the plane, Chuck! Start the plane! What do you mean, a truck? What truck? I mean, that it's character is what is in these films, When Sean Connery's standing out on that bridge and they're chopping it and he's going to fall to his doom and the man who would be king and he's singing, you're stunned. You're stunned, The old man is talking to his sons and Ron, and he's all, see this arrow? One arrow can be broken, but see this bundle of arrows? A bundle of arrows, which represents your 3 sons, cannot be broken. And then the third son gets up and breaks them and says, bullshit, Dad. I mean, it's all character, and it's great, and it's compelling. That's why I watch the movies.
All right. Well, I want to thank you guys for doing this. I really appreciate it. And probably the last thing I would ask you is just any advice for aspiring students that want to be board artists. What's something they could do?
Study good films. Really get into the nuts and bolts. And question yourself and ask yourself, why does this work? What is it about this shot that works? What is it about the storytelling? Just all those aspects of visual filmmaking.
Right, Mark?
I'd say the biggest thing that a student needs to learn is to get out of his or her own way. No, you're not going to get it right. And that's what learning is all about, that you can make mistakes and it's okay to make mistakes, and that's why you learn. You don't learn because you get it right. You learn because you just messed up. You learn because you tried something new and it wasn't okay. So make your mistakes now and make them often, and it's okay. It's okay to lose. I know it's hard for a young person to hear because it's all about success for them. That's how they measure themselves. It's about how many pats on the back that they get. But they're going to grow more and become a better talent and improve their skills a lot more if they're messing up. If they allow themselves to mess up, because then they can take that critique so much more easier and not bash themselves afterwards.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't get it right. It's like, pick yourself up, you crybaby pussy. Come on.
Don't be
Can I say that on this? Yeah, don't be afraid to throw stuff out.
Professionally as well.
Absolutely. But you don't get in the professional world. You don't get that. It's okay to get it wrong. And I think in the education, as their students going, you don't hear it at all. And it's all about that it is okay to. That's why you're learning,